Bismillah, alhamdulillah. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulullah. Wa salamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's an honor for me indeed to be with such distinguished brothers and sisters in Islam. I say that because I consider all those who have made a commitment to the Lord above that they want to use their time and resources to share a message, a beautiful message with other people. So whoever is committed to such a thing, these people are, in my estimation, are better than angels because they have done so by choice. Whereas an angel would have no choice. He would just have to do what he's assigned to do. So for me, to be in the company of such people as you is indeed an honor. And I ask Allah to accept from all of us. Ameen. My name is Yusuf Estes, and alhamdulillah, Allah guided me to Islam about 14 years ago. And since that time until now, I have this notion in my mind that if we keep working and Allah bless us with the success, we can see many people open up to this message, this simple and beautiful message. There's only one God, and there is a need from our side to obey Him in peace. And that is about the best way to sum up the message. It does not get more complicated than that unless you just want it to be. In our talk today, what I'd like to do is to have this more as a dialogue rather than as a muhadara or lecture, because most of you here, if not all, probably you know more about Islam than I do anyway. And we're just going to be talking about presenting what we know in a way that's acceptable to those who are going to be receiving the message. I think sometimes in terms of somebody who's carrying the telegraph message. Do you remember the days of the telegraph when someone would sit at one end of a wire, somebody else is sitting at the other end of the wire, and they're tap, tap, tap. Actually, I think it started with the Zulus a long time ago. Could be, man.
Yeah, sure.
They're probably tapping out that, what is that called? Kulun Kulu. Allah is greatest. Allahu Akbar. So, the thing that happens, though, when the message goes through the wire, there's no problem there. And the one receives it on the other end, there's no problem there because everybody knows their job. But then, after it gets to its destination in the telegraph office, they have to have a human being pick up the message, which is now written down on paper, little pasted in pieces of words, and take off and go find the place and deliver it to the recipient. Okay. And that's somebody who used to wear a little cap and had a bicycle with a little bell on it, and he'd ride down the street. I don't know if you remember any of this, but that was a telegraph boy.
Yes.
Okay. It's a very nondescript kind of job. Just a guy on a bicycle, deliver a message and go. Okay, well, the way I look at it, we have big ulama today. These are the telegraph operators. And they know what's up, you know. And then we got just us guys on the bicycles. Well, the more I thought about it, I said, wait a minute. The Mormons beat us to the bicycles. Now what? So, if we said, well, let's go on foot and out of the way here to just carry the message to the people the best we can, I think that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about today. How can I carry this message? The message is already there. And in fact, it's my job not to distort the message or lose the message or forget to deliver it. So making that kind of an analogy perhaps I think will help set the tone for what we'd like to do this afternoon here in Durban, South Africa. If you have with you any paper and would like to write down some of notes, ideas, impressions that you have, suggestions, certainly, all of that is appreciated and can be forwarded up to us, and then we can quickly go over these things throughout the program. You don't have to wait for us to pass a microphone around, and you don't have to wait for us to hear what somebody said and try to understand and then get back to it. So I'll start in the beginning on giving you a chance to prepare your side of it, because I need input from everybody here. But I would like to start with what the actual message is about. And just reminding us, and hopefully those who see this in the future and take some benefit from it, we hope, inshallah, that this message came even with Adam in the first place. And you might say, well, how? Because Adam was all by himself. So why would he have to carry a message to anyone? Well, remember, as Allah told us in the Quran, that He created Eve, or Hawa, from Adam, and from them many men and women. So the message needed to be carried on to his generations. Allah tells us in the Quran also that we are responsible for our children, our families. In fact, there's an ayah which said, "O you who believe, guard your families, your children, against the fire which is made up of men and stones." So that obviously is the first line of defense. When we begin to present the message, we've got to do so with our own families. Now, a lot of the analogies that I use are going to be local for me, from a Texas perspective. So if you don't follow it all that much, we'll just try to translate it over to what it would be in South Africa. But for me growing up, I remember if I would be walking along, a young boy's walking along somewhere, and as he's going along, he sees a puddle of water or a small pond and some rocks. What will he do? And you see, that should be the same around the world, that boy is going to find a rock, a nice flat one or a nice round one that seems to be the size that he needs, and then he's going to toss it into the water or the tank. Is that right? That's just what boys do. Now, using that analogy, consider where the impact is. When the rock hits, wherever it hits, that's the biggest impact, always. So the largest wave is immediately right next to the rock. Following that is another wave immediately after it, and another, and another, and another, and another. The first wave doesn't go very far, but it sure goes up high, doesn't it? The second one is not quite so high, but it's wider because it's a bigger ring. This continues until it becomes only ripples, and it will eventually reach the edge of the tank or the pond, but it won't be very high at all, but it will still be a ripple. But look how wide it is at that stage. And this is explaining something called broadcast, because you're broadcasting out from that. Now, if we equate that to ourselves presenting the information, to the message to our families and our friends and our community and then the world at large, I think we can get the equivalent. Our immediate family is very important, but even before immediate family would be our wives or our children, and then even more immediate would be ourselves. I should give the message to myself first. And how would it be as a message boy, a delivery boy, I forgot to go into work and pick up the message, and I can't deliver what I don't have. Huh? And I don't have multiple messages. I don't have to go in every day and get new messages. It's just one message. It's a simple message. In fact, it's so simple people can memorize it, even if they don't speak the Arabiya. If they don't have the Arabic language, they can still memorize it, because the very words of the message are words that are, or sounds actually, that you will hear from children regardless of where they are in the world. Little tiny babies. Listen closely as they are laying there on their backs or sides, with nothing to do, kind of staring off, and they'll start doing it. La, 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 la. They say that. La, 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 la. Do they say that? Babies say that here in Africa. La, la. You have a baby. This baby go la, 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 la. It's one of the first sounds that mamas want to do with their babies. La, 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 la. Look how cute, mashallah. La, la, la. La. There's another sound that picks up a little bit later on. E, E, E. And it comes in different volumes. Sometimes it's like that. But la, E, la, E, la, E, la, la, E, la. Now here's another sound that requires a little bit of air with it. Of course, babies breathe, so you hear that. But sometimes they go ha, 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 la ilaha illallah. Isn't that easy? Now I use that example at the Curacao University in front of 150 people. 135 of them stood up and made shahada. We have it on video. By the way, I want you to use, as much as you can, use the materials that we have online, because that's why we went to the trouble to create the websites, design the programs, and then put them on there. The program where the 135 people enter Islam is called 135 Enter Islam, coincidentally. We tried our best to make things easy, not complicated. There's, just as in the story about priests and preachers entering Islam is called Priests and Preachers Entering Islam. We have another one that asks the question, does Islam equal terrorism? And the name of it is, does Islam equal terrorism? We have another one that helps people understand the common sense of Islam. It's called Common Sense of Islam. I'm not very creative, I think, with the titles, and that maybe the secret of our success is to cut down on creativity and just deliver the message. Or as they say in the sales business, kiss. Kiss. Did you hear salesmen say kiss, kiss? No, they're not trying to be romantic. No, no. They're delivering a message. K-I-S-S. They used to say, keep it simple, stupid. But I don't want to call anybody stupid, so we say keep it super simple. Now, I want to come back again to this analogy of delivering the message and the rock and the water, etc. And think about, once I have delivered the message to myself, La ilaha illallah, what is the meaning behind it? Because just reciting something, although it could have reward, could be very nice, it wouldn't really benefit a lot if I didn't get the idea behind it. For instance, it could be there would be a day when there was an emergency and you would have to tell people, you know, there's a fire, everyone stand, walk to the outside, and exit by all the doors on the right. Now you could repeat that over and over and over till you had it memorized. Well, the problem would come in is if you didn't know what any of the words meant, and then a real fire came up, and you start reciting that, and you're running over to the left, and everybody will follow you. So it makes sense to know what the words mean. La in Arabic. And again, I'll tell you, this is what I told the people in Curacao, no different. La in Arabic is an easy word to learn. If you want to learn some Arabic, you don't go to the university. If you want to learn conversational Arabic, you just go to somebody's house. Just move in and listen. Now, the most familiar word in any household that I know of is the word of negation. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. I told you no. No, no. So this word is real common in the English language. I'm sure in Dutch it's the same, or you know, German, nein, nein, nicht, nicht, you know. And in Arabic, la, 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 la. So la is no. We got that. There we go. First word of the kalima, the message is la, no. The next word, ilah. Ilah means God. The exact word in English for ilah is God, and the exact word for God in Arabic is ilah. No difference. So if anybody tells you Allah does not equal God, you tell them you're right. It's much bigger. Because the word Allah cannot be translated to English simply because English doesn't have a word for it. The English speakers are very deprived, not depraved, deprived. That's another matter for another program, but we'll talk about that. But when we talk about this subject of words, you can begin to understand what the difficulty is in trying to explain Islam to a people who don't have a language sufficient to accommodate the tremendous meanings and understandings that go along with the Arabic language. Ilah is a God, and a God, according to the English dictionary, is anything worshipped, and according to the Arabic lexicon or dictionary, you're going to find again the same thing, that it is something worshipped. Ilah. Aliha is a plural, and uluhiyya is the study of it, of monotheism, uluhiyya. If you want to know about this, you'll find some books dealing with what's called tawheed or uluhiyya. It means the oneness from the word tawheed or wahid, uluhiyya from the word ilah, oneness in worship. The worship, it has to be for only one God, okay? So, la ilaha, there is no God. Illah, this is the exception, but except. La ilaha, illah, and now comes a word they don't have. You'll have to explain this word because they don't have it. Allah. Because Allah means the only one object of worship, which can never be plural, can't put an S after it in English, nor can it have gender, it can't be male or female. There is none to worship except the only God or object of worship, which is Allah. It makes sense? The explanation, you've probably heard me say it many times, in English, when you want to talk about the God, you have to use a capital G, which has some inherent problems immediately. When you're speaking to me, how can I tell if you mean a big G or a little g? I can't see. Your lips are still moving the same way when you say God. A Hindu God was left on the shelf. Somebody left their little God over there. But obviously, to a Jew or a Christian, obviously a Muslim as well, there's no way you're going to leave a God on a shelf. It doesn't work like that. So to make a difference, they had to use a capital G. None of the Semitic languages incorporate such a style because they have just the letters without uppercase and lowercase. So whenever you see anything translated from the Old Testament or from the New Testament with a big G in the middle of a sentence, God, it was up to the translator to decide which words need to be uppercase and lowercase. The same for the word son. When they talk about Son of God, is the same problem. Sometimes they use a big S, sometimes they don't. An example there is in Luke chapter 3, verse 38, when it said that Adam is the Son of God. And if you challenge them and say, well, what in the world is that? It says right there, Son of God. They say, that was a little S and a little G. Whereas when it says Son of Man, Jesus calling himself Son of Man, you say, well, that's the same as it is in Ezekiel. The prophet Ezekiel is called Son of Man throughout the whole thing. And they come back and say, no, no, no. If you'll notice, that was a capital S and a capital M. Okay, so that's where you run into that. Another objection you may run into along the way is people might say to you, well, You told me that the word Allah cannot be made plural. It's true. So then how do you account for the numerous times throughout the Quran when Allah speaks in the first person, but it's not singular, it says we. Nahnu is we in Arabic language. Or khalaqna, which means we created, because when it has the na at the end of it, khalaqna, means we created. How are you going to account for that? It means we, yes or no? It does. But it's the royal we. And English provides us a comparison for that, because the king or the queen of England, whenever they decree any matter, they say, we decree the following. They speak in the royal we, the royal I am, if you will. And also, am is this same kind of royal plural. I am instead of I is. So just let them understand that. And if they still don't pick up on it, we'll just explain like this. Whenever we have more than one thing in existence, it's called A-R-E. But if you have only one, it's singular, you say is. This is, that is, he is, she is. But if it's plural, these are, those are, and they are. Except when you speak directly to an individual, you do not say you is my friend, you say you are my friend. And also when I speak about myself, I say I am your friend instead of saying I is your friend. It makes sense? So once this is understood, then you can move on. They'll say, well, wait a minute, hold on. What about the other part? You said you can't make it genderized. Throughout the Quran, you constantly see Qul huwa Allahu ahad, and in Arabic it does say he is Allah. But the he is at the end of the word, not the beginning, because that's the structure of Arabic. Allahu means Allah, he, because who in Arabic means he. And hiya, strangely enough, means she. And you never find Qul huwa Allahu ahad. You see, you wouldn't say Qul hiya Allahi ahad. It wouldn't make sense, because she is, that's I'm just showing you that it wouldn't work. And so they might say, well, there it's clear, then you're saying God is a man. No, and he's not like a man. This again is for dignity, respect, and honor, and Allah has given himself the highest dignity, respect, and honor. But he clearly tells us in the Quran, "Laysa kamithlihi shay'un wa huwa samiun basir." There isn't anything that compares to Allah. He's the all-seeing and the all-hearing. Actually, it's the other way. He's all-hearing and the all-seeing. He also says in the Quran, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. And in this case, he's saying that there's nothing that compares to him, and he calls himself Ahad. And Ahad is a kind of one that has no two to come after it. Still comes from the root, like where you have Wahid, which means one, and Ahad, which is a one but with no two, like unique, one only. I've got a lot of socks like that at home, you know. They're Ahad. You finally made to it. I just want to make sure you're still awake. Okay, now that we got that, the message is simple. We're telling the people, La ilaha illallah. There is no God worthy of worship except the one true God, Allah. The only one to be worshipped. Make sense? It made a lot of sense at the time of Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, because when he came with a message and faced his people with it and called them all together, and he said, okay, what if I told you that on the other side of this hill that I'm standing on, there's an army coming? They said, who believe you? I mean, we're ready to go to war because you never lied to us. You're a Sadiq. You're the truthful. So he said, well, he's got a message and a warning. He says to them, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ana rasulihi. He says, I bear witness that there's only one deity to worship, which is Allah, and I'm his messenger to you. They got mad and walked off because they totally understood it. They didn't need anybody to break it down to them. They didn't need somebody to say, Islam is peace, you know. They knew exactly what it was. Now, Islam. Where does Islam fit in all this? Islam simply describes the condition between us and Allah once we've accepted the premise of La ilaha illallah. Islam simply tells what you're going to do about what you believe. You have to first believe La ilaha illallah, then you need to learn about Islam. Islam is the submission, surrender, obedience, sincerity, and peace with Almighty Allah. But you don't need any of it if you don't believe in Allah, because it's a moot point. If you don't have anywhere to go, there's no sense setting out on a journey, is there? So once you know what it is that you're after, you're working in this life to draw close to Allah, be with Him in the next life, in the paradise, in the heaven, then how do I get there? And this is your journey. It's called Islam, and that's the beginning of everything. But don't push them past that. Once they get to that, you're ready to go. And speaking of being ready to go, I'm ready to go. So I've got some stuff going on here, and I want to begin because this is how we're going to make it work, is to, interact. Now, it said, Islam says that each one is accountable for his or her actions. Actually, it says in the Quran, La yukallifu lahu nafsan illa wus'aha. Allah does not task any soul more than they can bear burden. Lam yukallahu La yukallifu lahu nafsan illa wus'aha, laha ma kasabat wa alayha ma kasabat. And nobody is carrying the burden of somebody else. In other words, you're going to be accountable for what you do. وَمَا يُمَا مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ وَمَا يُمَا مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَهُ. On the day of judgment, any good that the person has done, they will see it then, and any evil that they've done, they'll see it then. So even an atom's weight. Christians feel that Christianity is better because you can do wrong and be forgiven because Jesus died for their sins. How would you explain it? And then another question, explaining Jesus was not crucified. Well, first, let us look at this. The idea that you can do wrong and be forgiven is in Islam, is in Christianity. But the reason is different. You can do wrong and be forgiven. I mean, after all, Muslims, we're all going to admit immediately we're sinners. Christians say we're sinners. We say we are too. Christians say we're born into sin. We say no, we're born innocent and then work our way up to it. A lost good condition, and then we take it downhill. And their idea is that God starts them out in a bad condition and only Jesus can get them out of jail. So to me, that starts out as a losing proposition. If a child dies, they had to go to hell. But if he wasn't saved, if his parents were Hindu or Buddhist, what chances the kid got? Whereas Islam is clearly saying that every child that dies goes to paradise. Well, that's beautiful. I mean, could you imagine some Hindu woman's child gets run over by a truck? Which is, I mean, it's really sad. She goes to the priest and he says, ma'am, was your child a Catholic? Were you Catholic? No, we're Hindu. Sorry. Your kid went to hell. Now, I mean, how does a woman already feel she's lost a child? That's the one single hardest thing on any mother, is to consider she's lost a child. And then you come along and say, and the child went to hell. If she came to the Muslim, or the Imam, or someone and said, well, what's happened to my child? And he said, ma'am, were you Muslim? No. My child was, 1 year old or something like that, or 2, whatever. Said, well, even though we don't consider that Hindu is the right religion with God, we still consider your child's in paradise. Wow. That's a pretty good deal. So that's how Islam is telling about salvation. Now, what about doing wrong? Well, when a person does something wrong, if they're willing to admit it was wrong and they're sorry they did it and they don't want to do it anymore, that's a pretty good sign, isn't it? Well, I think we call that rehabilitation. Is it? Somebody steals, we catch them, We talk to them about stealing, maybe put them in jail for a couple of years. And when we turn them loose, we hope they won't do that anymore. Doesn't work real well in real life, does it? But it's strange if a person really believes in God, Allah, and they're feeling that they're going to be accountable to Him, they're not going to be really interested in doing any more stealing because they know that He is watching them all the time and they don't want to disappoint Allah. They're more ashamed of that than anything else. And it's true because even any of us, and all of us are human beings, so we need to use ourselves as an example, not by telling other people, of course, but to think about it. We all make sins, and we're all really sorry about it. And if you said, well, but the Christianity is guaranteeing that your sins are forgiven. You could ask, are they going to be guaranteed to be forgiven even before I commit them? Is it guaranteed my sins are going to be forgiven even before I commit them? And if he said, well, yeah. So you guys don't have to worry about anything. You can do anything you want to. Whereas even after I've committed my sin and I have repented in front of Allah, I'm still not positive on the day of judgment I'm going to be off the hook because I don't know how sincere I am. So I'm always going to be afraid to ever even think about doing it again. Whereas with you, you got to get out of jail free card. You can do it again and again and again, and Jesus keep on forgiving you. Allah doesn't have this kind of an opportunity with you. If somebody continues to do these sins or continues to go in and out of Islam, and then eventually Allah won't guide them anymore. Allah talks about that in the Quran. You come in and go out and come in and go out, forget about it. So you don't play around with Islam. If you really believe in Allah and you know you did something wrong, then you stop. And you hate what you did. And you never do it again. And of course you should discourage others from doing the same. The Prophet ﷺ told us, follow up an evil deed with a good deed. There's an excellent solution and remedy for some of the ills of society today. My gosh, just think all the good deeds the politicians would be doing all of a sudden. I want to move on and kind of sum this up. This is one of the biggest things you should consider in presenting Islam, is the rebuttal that you would receive from a born-again Christian or any Christian, because they want to know about salvation, and if you don't understand how to explain that, I don't think there's much point in walking out the door and saying anything to anybody. Salvation of Islam is very, very important. We have something in Islam called rahmah. The rahmah of Allah is the grace of Allah. I use the English word grace. You know it's been used many times, gracious. Allah is the gracious, the most gracious. But did you know that the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said it after Salah one time? None shall enter Jannah, paradise, illa, except by the rahmah min Allah, except by the grace from Almighty Allah. And they said, even you, O Prophet of Allah? He said, even me. Now, the Baptists and a lot of other Bible thumpers, that's what we used to call ourselves, will tell you once saved, always saved. And they will say none is saved except by the grace. Well, definitely that's what we just said. So let us not argue on a point that we just agreed on. Let us move forward and see what is the grace. The grace in Islam is Allah Himself. Allah is the grace. They will say Jesus is the grace. We say no, Allah is. And Allah's grace, His mercy is everywhere. Absolutely, Allah's grace and mercy is everywhere and has existed in this universe before there were human beings. And the mercy or rahmah of Allah, that is what a mother has for a child, Okay, that's rahmah. That's mercy that a mother has for a child. For all of the mothers, for all the children of all the living beings, the mercy, the rahmah for the children. And all of the mercy extending all through the universe is one part of Allah's rahmah, one part of His rahmah. But He has 100 parts of rahmah. And the other 99 parts of His rahmah, grace, mercy, are waiting for the true believers on the Day of Judgment. How merciful is that? So if you understand it, you realize that this is the salvation of Islam. Allah is merciful, most merciful, and He is the forgiving, and He is the loving. He is Al-Wadud, He is Al-Ghafur, He is Ar-Rahim, He is Ar-Rahman. All of these are statements of His forgiveness, His mercy, and His love. So, if they say God is love, we say He is the loving, no problem. I don't want to argue with you on what I agree. Doesn't make any sense. But if you want to tell me Jesus is God, no. I don't find any statement says so in any of the Aramaic scriptures or manuscripts. Never saw that. And if you tell me that Jesus is the only way to get to God, I'm going to tell you that's right if you understand the meaning of the sentence. Because there's no way to get to Almighty God except by the same way that all of the prophets claimed, which is to obey Him. Because those are the statements you will find even in the English translation of what's left over of the Bible. Constantly telling you, if you love me, you'll love the Father, and you will obey the commandments, and vice versa. You have to obey the commandments according to the Gospels. That's what it says. Where there's no obedience to the least of the commandments, there's no paradise waiting for you. Wow. Because whoever breaks the least commandment and teaches it, he's the least in the kingdom. That's in Matthew 5:17. Having said that and established the format of what is the salvation in Islam, the next part you ask about the dying for the sins. The stories that we have of Jesus in the Gospels tell us that He prayed and asked God not to put Him through this. The prayers that He offered on Gethsemane were so sincere and so strong in their devotion that the Bible goes to the trouble to mention them in detail, saying even that He kept waking up His companions to stay there on duty, to guard while He was praying, so much so that His sweat was like blood running down His face in this great prayer that He's offering to God. And even they recorded some of the words for us where He's saying, let this cup pass from me, even so your will be done. So this becomes obvious that the one making the prayer doesn't want something to happen. Otherwise, why would he go through these calisthenics and falling on his face and offering these prayers and bowing to the Lord and crying till his sweat is like blood, and waking people up and telling them this is, do you realize what's at hand here? And after all of these prayers, from the one, according to them, who has no sin, he needs the perfect man. And by the way, we don't argue about that either. We love him very much. The miracle birth, we have that. But look, he's praying, but he doesn't get what he prayed for. According to them, Jesus can't get his prayers answered. Now, if this is the case, if Jesus can't get his prayers answered, what makes you think they're going to answer your prayers? Because the one on the cross says, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. This is not Koine Greek. This is from the Aramaic. And it's similar to the Arabic. Allahi, Allahi, my God, why have you forsaken me? And if he's forsaking him, in other words, he backfired on him, where are you going to be? Think about it. This is a very stunning thought for a person that's never had a chance to have an alternate thought. Because in a lot of the churches, they just basically, you're going to stay with this. You're not going to listen to anything else. If you ask a question, just believe. It's a mystery. Don't ask. Have faith, brother, you know. But in Islam, it's not like that. We're allowed to ask. In fact, you're encouraged to ask. In fact, I'm encouraging all of you here now, ask more questions so we can continue our little fun that we're having with our program today. Now I want to come to the very last part where it says about the crucifixion. Well, actually, there is a book by Sheikh talking about crucifixion or crucifixion, as in not true. It's quite interesting and offers several scenarios. There are also some discussions in the actual Bible as it remains today. If you read it, it'll make you think. I encourage you to study that and look at it and think about it. And then the Quran itself still exists today without any corruption, never been altered. It's the final testament or last testament of Almighty Allah. And it clearly states in there the opposite, that at the moment of truth, that instead of Jesus being on the cross, that Allah saved him, and says they didn't kill him and they didn't crucify him. Rather, Allah pulled him up. Now, regardless of how you translate how Allah took him up, pulled him up, caused him to go up, don't get into the semantics of the thing. Fact is, he's not there anymore. He's with Allah. Process is totally immaterial to me, and he will be back in the last day. But rather, something was made apparent to them, and they've been arguing or disputing about it ever since. And you said, well, now the Bible doesn't say that. Well, I got news for you. You probably never really studied the Bible. I encourage you to sit with somebody that has taken at least first-year seminary school and ask them about the manuscripts and ask them what the Gospels say. Ask them. Because in one case, you've got a story in one of the Gospels where they're going to the cave or the sepulcher where the body is supposed to be. The stone is gone. The big, huge rock in front of it is gone. Body's not there. And somebody's standing there telling them, well, he's already gone. Okay? You said, well, that's the miracle right there. The stone was rolled away. Well, I don't know. Do you call that a miracle when stones get rolled away? I see garbage trucks hauling stuff off every day, and I'm real happy to see it happen, but I never thought of it as a miracle. Of course, I remember when New York had a strike with the garbage trucks, and everybody was praying for a miracle. But the point that I'm trying to make is just because the stones rolled away, why did that have to be an angel? They said, because it was an angel who was there. Well, you're reading the wrong gospel. It's a different story. Okay, it just said it was a man. Another gospel says an angel. Then how will you account? Keep reading. There's more than one story. The narrations are not the same. In another one, it's real clear that they saw a gardener and they started dialoguing with him, and it turned out it was Jesus in disguise, and he told them, don't approach me yet, for I have not yet ascended. Now, why is he wearing this gardener's disguise? Huh? Well, it's obvious, so the Romans won't grab him and throw him back on the cross again, right? Stop and think of that. Does that make any sense? The story goes on, and about this time it tells you about the one who sold him out for the 30 pieces of silver, which is Judas Thomas Iscariot. Now I have my own ideas about this. This is not something that the churches have even argued on, but I've had my doubts because there is one gospel called the Gospel of Judas Thomas Iscariot. Now there's a problem with that. A serious problem. Sheikh's laughing. He knows who's Judas Thomas Iscariot. How is this guy going to write a book? They attribute it to him. There is a gospel called that. or it might be an epistle, I don't remember. But I was shocked when I read it, and I said, how is this when according to the Bible, in 2 different places, he died immediately afterwards. Once, where he throws the silver back, and then he falls off a cliff and bursts into flames. But then another one where he's hung on a tree. But then this must be a 3rd scenario where he sneaks out and starts writing books. Maybe his publisher had some kind of deal with it. I don't know. I don't want to get into that. But the point here, they are exactly what Allah said in the Quran, arguing about it, what really took place and how it happened. So I don't want to get into that too deep. If you don't want to believe what we're saying, you're welcome. But I don't want to get into the subject of the cross until I first talk about Allah. I'm going to ask you a question. If you really understand another part of the Tawheed, we talked about Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, Tawheed al-Isma wa Sifat, helps you a lot in explaining to anybody, especially the deviant groups of Christianity and even groups within Islam that have a tendency to go sideways on us. And that is, when you say Allah is the ultimate in his characteristics, he does not ascribe any of his characteristics to his creation. In other words, Allah doesn't share his powers, right? He is all-knowing. So if somebody tells you, I know everything, he's a liar, right? Absolutely. He's all-hearing. If somebody tells you, I hear everything, it's a lie. And if somebody tells you that they're all-patient, that's also not true, because Allah is the only one that's all-patient. All of the characteristics and what we call 99 names of Allah are for him. You can be patient to an extent. You can hear some things, see some things, but you're not God. You don't know everything. You don't hear everything. You follow that? So when people begin to give those attributes to a human being or anything in the creation, they're committing an act of shirk, which compares that thing to Allah or makes partners with Allah. And Allah said in the Quran, it's in chapter 4, verse 48, Surah An-Nisa, that Allah said he does not forgive a shirk, the setting up of partners with him in worship, but anything less than that, he can forgive. Therefore, it means the salvation in Islam is very beautiful. Everything can be forgiven, everything, except making partners with him. And don't break the first commandment of the Old Testament and you're good to go. That's pretty much how it works. And if you think that Jesus is God and God is Jesus and Jesus died on the cross, well, I'm really sorry for you. Your God died. And if your God died, I mean, you know, or even 1/3 of him died, that's kind of sad, you know. But then he came back to life. Then my point is, why bother? Why didn't he just do like Allah? Allah just forgives everybody. He just forgives everybody of everything except shirk. But your God can't do that. Okay, whatever. Next. So, do we need to take a break here?
No, just
Keep going? You got some more stuff? All right. Okay, it says in the UK.
We have Dawah desks. Is a common site.
Read this for me, will you?
Yeah.
Give you a...
In the UK, there are Dawah desks. This is a common site. A group of people set up a table carrying Islamic literature outside a shopping center, mall, and then passers-by are given the opportunity to chat and speak to people, pick up free literature. Is this something you would recommend? And what are some of the tips you could give which can contribute to our success here in South Africa? And the other one, how would you call a non-Muslim neighbor to Islam? I think we'll just leave it at the 2 for now. So this first two questions, this setting up...
I like one at a time, but I'll go ahead and do that. One, we call them dawah tables in the United States, dawah table. And my question is, how come you're not already doing it? I mean, why would you have to ask that question? It should have already been out there with that a long time ago. But when you set it up, there's a couple of points. Keep in mind who it is you're trying to reach and what is it you want to say. If you're out there sort of representing a whole grocery store, trying to get people to come over to do business in the grocery store, what do? Do you take the whole store out on the street? No. Do you take samples from every department out on the street? No. Actually, what you will do is take a sample with you that's the most attractive, easiest to present, and have that and that alone. And anybody ask any other question, we'll go over to the grocery store and check it out. I don't know. It's not my job. Does that make sense? Today, as we were coming back from the lion place, where all the lions are, we stopped off someplace and they presented us with a little free sample bag of something to eat, little chips of some kind. It's pretty tasty. And it had a little warning on there, warning, do not share these chips with anyone else. Eat them all for yourself, because that's the whole idea of me time. This is for you to eat, just to have some time for yourself and enjoy this just for you. Until you're feeling that all's well with the world, and then you can give some to others. That's what it said on the little bag. I said, no, that is somebody who has understood what they're trying to get across. This is a free sample to get you to try more of it, but certainly you're never going to forget it because of what it said, right? Huh? So you could stand there with your, what do you call, Dawah desk or help center for Islam, and people can walk up and tell you about all their problems. Most of the people standing in line are going to be Muslims telling you that why they don't want to wear hijab or why they don't think a beard is fard, and some of the other things like that, are arguing about this group is all mushrikeen or that group is make takfir on every sheikh that they know. You know, that's what's going to happen. And you'll be in so many long conversations with them. When a person walked up and said, well, I'm not a Muslim, could I get out of the way? I'm trying to argue with this guy about, you know. So, you know what I'm saying? So I really highly encourage, when I train people to do this with us, we do it every week. We have dawah tables out in front of masajid every week. And every time we go to any event, we put up dawah tables, and we always give out CDs. And we calculate exactly what CD for each event. I want this CD for this kind of event. In other words, when I say CD, I'm talking about the information that's on there, the audio or the video program that we have. And not just the topic, the exact words, because sometimes the topic could be Jesus. But when I'm speaking about Jesus for Muslims, I have to make sure they understand what the Arabic verses are, etc., etc. And when I'm talking for the Christians, I will have something else, and also for Jews. Because Jews accept Jesus coming in the future. They just don't accept that he's already been here. So all of that's important to keep in mind who you're talking to. Now, if you understood what I just said, then probably from our material, what we have, and we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of audio programs, with yours truly starring in all of them. We have a bunch of videos, and the videos we have others besides myself. We have a list of people, you can check it out. Now, in that, it's great on the internet. People can see what they want to see, watch what they want to do, download. It's up to them. It's free. But when you're putting out a table for dawah, what I recommend is the one we got called What is Islam? It has the least amount of jokes. I can't help it. I have to tell some jokes when I'm going. It has the least amount of jokes, the least amount of comparative religion. It's more of an alignment of religion of the monotheistic faith, because we don't actually criticize. In the very beginning, we're actually saying, if I told you about a religion that has one God who created all the heavens and earth in 6 days, and then he created a man named Adam, from Adam made his wife, and from the two all the human beings came, and then they were tempted with something not to eat some fruit. The devil got them to eat fruit. They ate the fruit and got kicked out. What religion am I talking about? Everyone raised their hand. They said Christianity. I said, but the story I quoted to you was in Genesis, which is Old Testament. It's obviously from the Jews. And all of them said, oh, that's right, it is, isn't it? I said, yeah, I could be talking about the Jewish religion. In fact, that's where I read it out of. So it could be Jew or Christian. They said, yeah, you're right. I said, well, I wasn't talking about either one. I was talking about Islam. And they were shocked. They had never heard that. So when you present Islam, you have to remember they have no knowledge at all. They're walking around with a Jewish book attached to the Christian book, but they're not having the Quran attached to it. So they have what they call the Old Testament, or Torah, the New Testament, which we call the Injil, but they're missing the Last Testament, which is the Quran. So it's up to us to let them know what's there. They didn't know. Another thing, they don't know what we believe about Jesus. This is an amazing story. So you can present it one of two ways. About Jesus, and that's your dawah table, or about Islam, and that's your dawah table, or about Muhammad, and that's your dawah table. But don't mix it, because you're not there trying to sell stuff. It's to be given away. Give away the ones which most clearly describe the message you're trying to get across to those people in the least amount of time. Don't go for long lectures like the one you're listening to now. Go for the short stuff. Rasul Sallallahu told us the mark of an alim, a real knowledgeable person, is short khutbah, short speeches, and long salat. Okay, so I just proved to you without doubt I'm not a scholar. That left. Now, when you put the table out there, the next thing is, we talked about the material. What about the people handling the material? You have to train them in what not to say. Now, if they're unable to speak at all, there's something wrong with their throat, or they're just not able to speak, this is probably better. They will do a lot better because they can't stick their foot in their mouth because they can't open their mouth. Just give them the thing and point to the IPCI building and let them come over. That's highly recommended. I'm serious. The worst thing you can do is put an alim at a table, because this happened. I met a man in Ohio at an event. I'm going to end with this little thing right here and then jump to another subject, but listen to this. I'm at an event doing the thing, and I found out right away there were two Christians sitting side by side. One of them was an Arab, and I could see it in his face. The other one was an American. When the whole thing was over, the American wanted to come to me, but the Arab was trying to pull him away. But when I talked to him, I treated him as I always do, with the most respect and everything, and having fun, joking around, because I really do love everybody. I don't harbor hatred for anybody. I do hate what the evil people do, but I don't have to hate the people. So while we were talking, he let me know that a couple of years back, he had visited a dawah table in a university. And he asked them for the Quran. He would like to know about Islam. He was not satisfied with his version of Christianity, and he definitely wanted to know. And they had an alim sitting there with a big, huge beard who knew everything there was to know about everything. And he told him real clear, you cannot touch the Quran because you are an infidel. You are impure. You're najis. He said, well, how will I ever get to read it? He said, well, you will have to go to the Arabic language, study that, and when you know the Arabic language, then you could make Shahada and you could be a Muslim. And then you could read it. So he left. And when he met the Arabs, they told him, nah, you don't have to do that. Just learn the Arabic and we'll let you read the Quran. And along the way, they let him read the Bible in Arabic too. And he went to Syria, studied Arabic, and now he came back able to hold dialogues with Arabs. He's still not a Muslim. Along the way, he had picked up a lot of information against Muslims. I went with him that night and went to the apartment where he was living with a Muslim brother from Bangladesh. They're living together, but no dawah, just living together. So I sat with him until dawn, until Fajr, talking. He pulled out Bibles in so many languages I can't even remember them anymore. Some I had read, like the Spanish Bible, the Hebrew of the Old Testament. He started bringing out the Greek, showing me what he'd learned in Greek, and I'm going, whoa, you know, this guy's got a lot happening here for a layman. But he said, I really want to know. He said, now I got a problem with this verse, and he brought the Quran. He also had the Quran in different languages. When we started discussing all of it, I just told him, you know, up front, you have to believe there's a God. He said, I already got that. I never had a problem with that. I said, you and me both. And he said, well, what do you say about this Muslim said that, this scholar said that? And I said, well, people could be wrong, but God's never wrong. He agreed. By the time we got through in the morning, he said, I totally agree with everything you said. I want to come to you guys' picnic this afternoon and be with the Muslim Student Association picnic, and we'll take it from there. I understood him to mean he'd be ready to make his shahada. So when the brother picked me up to take me that morning for Fajr, I told him, I said, this man wants to join us today, and he's with Islam 100%. He said, that's right, I want to be there with you guys. The brother told me, okay. I said, now it's up to you to bring him. He's counting on you, he's got no ride. He said, yeah, okay, sure, why not? That afternoon when we're all out at the picnic, the brother came pulling up in his car and he didn't have him with him. And when he got out, I went over and said, what happened? He said, he happened to what? I said, well, where's the new Muslim, the guy who was wanting to be Islam? He said, well, I had to make a decision. He said, to get all the food and the volleyballs out here or him. There wasn't room in the car for both. I guess he wanted me to take a magic marker and draw a face on a volleyball. You give shahada to him. I don't know. But needless to say, I was really, really upset. I had to go to the airport to catch my plane. When I arrived home, I know I shared this story with my family probably 3 or 4 times before nightfall, because I was really, really confused on how the Muslims could be so uncaring about following through with something. The good news was, after I left, the new boy, Carl, his name was Carl, found a way to get out there on his own, and was with another friend of mine, Mutahar Sabri, the one who was with me when we gave 135 shahadas, and subhanAllah, he made his shahada there and then. Since then, he organized an event and brought me back over there. Yeah, but he told me, I'm fed up with the Muslims. He said, they don't have it together. He moved to California. Anyhow, now, let's come back to this in summary. When you put out a dawah table, think what you're trying to do, what you're trying to say, and who's your target. Don't just throw a table out there with a bunch of, oh, here's a whole bunch of, wow, look at this big stack of stuff. It's been here in the storeroom forever. Let's get rid of that. That's a good thing to hand out. You know why? And they're shiny and they're big and yeah, get them out the door. Man, that's great, because now this guy can go learn, and I've got those, by the way. And it says, what is the condition of a dhimmi in an Islamic state? What's the condition of a non-Muslim in a Muslim state? Have you seen that one? You know that pamphlet? You want some? We've got it. What would be the benefit of that? Another one is dealing with issues about the fiqh of the zakah. Oh, now that's something the guy needs to know, isn't it? Also, a lot of books I have about usury, interest, riba. And what is that? All of these things are not, even after they get in Islam, you're going to hit them with that stuff. So what was the question next?
That's about sisters.
Calling your relatives, I think, to Islam, huh? Neighbors.
Neighbors and non-Muslims.
The best thing with the neighbors, I have to listen to my wife on this one, because she's cool when it comes to this one. One time this past year, she asked me to go to this activity with her in the neighborhood. It was a Sunday afternoon or something. I'm never home on Sunday, but I happened to be there that day. So we went to this activity, which is out in the middle of a cul-de-sac, a little circle road. You know, no cars are driving in there. And they put up a little tent-looking thing, and all the neighbors are there from everywhere. And I thought, sure, when I show up dressed like this, and she's dressed like that, covered up like this, man, I'm just ready. People are going to go crazy. They're going to call the police, right? We pull up there, and I get out with the stuff, and we got some cookies. She wants to give away cookies. We make cookies. That's how we keep going. She bakes them. So here we are, and we get out. And I didn't want to do it, to be real honest about it. She's sitting there. She probably didn't know that, but I didn't really want to do it. We got there. When we got up there, the people are talking to her. Hey, it's a cookie lady. I said, what? Man, those are real good. Have you got any more of this and more of that? I said, wait a minute, what's happening here? What's it all about? I did not know that she'd had a yard sale and gave out these cookies to all the people that stopped to get stuff out of the yard sale. Finally, one gentleman came by and said, I just want to buy all these. These are delicious. And he took all the cookies. And then he gave them out to the other people that he knew. So everybody there knows this is the cookie lady. And when I came out with CDs, it was like, okay, great. That's more free stuff. We'll take it. And I was shocked. And everybody already knew, okay, yeah, you guys are Muslims, so how's everything going? Yeah, we feel bad, Bush is doing this and that. And by the way, it wound up our whole entire neighborhood, when it came up for the last presidential election, they were out circulating, going door to door, knocking on the doors, asking people to vote against Bush. They didn't care who you voted for, just vote against Bush. And they came in, and these are not Muslims. They're telling me, vote against Bush. I'm going, oh, alhamdulillah. So I think the best thing you can do with your neighbors is be a neighbor. Just look up what the Prophet ﷺ told us. He did not say go to all your neighbors, knock on the door, and tell them if you don't become a Muslim, you're going to go to hell. I didn't find that hadith. If you did find it, please share it with us. What I did find out, though, is you're not a believer if you can feel your stomach and go to sleep at night while the stomach of your neighbor remains empty. And when they said, well, who are my neighbors? He said 40 houses in any direction. Wow. Oh, Lee, man, can you imagine that? Fill up your stomach next time you think, man, time I do 40 neighbors in any direction, I'll walk off that stomach in a hurry, won't I? And you got to knock the door. You guys need anything? And so now, consequently, the people next to us, on the other side of us, behind us on the other side of us, they know who we are. They know what we are. They know what we're all about. Mr. Rainey on one side is bringing the tomatoes over on a regular. I walk up, there's some bags sitting on my doorstep. I open it up, and it's full of fresh homegrown tomatoes, cucumbers, and different things that he grows. The man on the other side is Ray, what's his last name? Maxwell, Raymond Maxwell. And this man comes over and rakes my leaves, helps him shovel off the snow, and even gets up on top of my house when I'm not there and gets the leaves out of the gutter so the rain won't get stuck up in there. And he's an old fat guy.
And not
never mind about the old fat guy thing. Anyhow, I imagine that he's doing this, and the people behind us, they own the house we live in. Probably it's kind of personal. I'm not ought to say it, but I will anyway, because I don't care if people know about it, if it benefit the dawah. But it came after one of the organizations that used to give us some support there packed up and went back to their country after 9/11. So it really just cut us out. I went back to the owner of the house, lived right behind me, and I just told him, we got to move. He said, why? I said, well, we don't have any support right now, and we don't know what we're going to do. We're stuck. And he said, well, you're not going anywhere. And I said, I thought he meant because we have a lease with them that's a signed lease, said we can't break it. And I told him because it does say in the lease, if I lose my job or my job requires me to move. And he said, that's not the point. He said, we've never had a tenant as good as you guys, and we don't want to lose you. Please, let's sit down and talk it out. Go over there and sit down with him. It turns out his wife is Indonesian, Christian, but she went to Muslim school. She likes Muslims, and she doesn't like the way Muslims are being treated in the world today. That's what she said. So when I told them, sitting on their couch, that we had to move, she started to cry. And they said, look, you don't have to pay. Just let it sit till you can. And they said, is too much? Is the rent? We can cut it. They cut the rent about Yeah, but it's percentage-wise, it was about 20%. Can you imagine anybody, and this is in the best area in the United States is around Washington, D.C. Northern Virginia is considered, go look it up on the internet, you'll see Northern Virginia is like really high-class place, good place. Nobody cuts the rent there. We already had a good deal on the rent going in, or I wouldn't have taken it, but they cut it. And when the lease ran out, they said, you don't need a lease with us. You stay as long or short as you like. And if there's a problem, please, please tell us. I remember once the rent was late. She took the rent to him and included the late charge, which should be paid. And he brought it back on the next Monday to me, and he said, please don't insult me again by doing that. You don't have a late charge with us. Now, does it pay off to treat your neighbors like you're supposed to? I don't know. What do you think? And this is not just there. In the apartments where we lived before was the same thing. The people knew who we were. There was a general from the Pentagon who used to live right across the hallway from us. And the first time he saw me in the elevator, he wouldn't speak to me. But after we lived together for a while, he'd greet me every morning, how are you doing, how's everything? I gave him a tape on Islam. What is Islam? On the morning of 9/11, I found that on my doorstep before 9/11 happened. I don't know what that's all about, but anyway. Enough about that. How do you give dawah to your neighbors? First thing is, you got to be a neighbor. Once you're a neighbor, they'll ask you, why are you dressed like that? Do you have to do that in your religion? Are you Jewish? You know, stuff like that. Or they might even ask you, you're Muslim, aren't you? Don't you? And one asked me one time, don't you have something called Ramadan coming up or something like that? I said, yeah. And then, oh, how about this one? When we were still in Texas, I remember, because, you know, in Ramadan, what you're supposed to do on Eid is take the sacrifice around to all your neighbors. Of course, we did that, yes. Right? So our neighbors come to me one time and said, when's your next Eid going to be? You remember that? It was Stoney and their family, yeah? SubhanAllah. Because they liked the food we were bringing them. It's good stuff, man. That's good. So that does a lot because, you know, philosophy, ideology, most people are not really interested in that. Most people tell you, I believe there's a God, and I don't want to argue about it. Okay? So open up what? Open up your heart. Open up your pantry, your kitchen. Open up your billfold. Give people money. That really shocks people a lot. You know, what do you want? Nothing. Just want to help you. You know, if it'll help you, you don't owe me anything. Now, I know that sounds strange, but I have watched Muslims do that time and again, and I know the effect of that when somebody helps somebody and not asking anything in return. And then finally, they'll trust you. And once they trust you, then they'll listen. And in many cases, they'll like you so much, they'll want to emulate you. And they'll say, well, how could I be like you guys? Do you mind if I tell you something about the Sahabi? The Sahabi had an attitude of, come be like us. Come be like us. That was it. You could look at the Sahabi and know what they were. They're enemies who fought them in the day and were captured by them. Then when they found themselves as prisoners of the Sahabi, they found that they were still getting the same food that they were getting. They found they got the same treatment that the Sahabi would like to have for themselves. And they saw the Sahabi putting food in each other's mouths. They saw them standing up all night long worshiping. And they thought about it, and they said, you know what? If we took them as prisoners, what would we do to them? We sure wouldn't worry about feeding them, would we? And as far as their women are concerned, when they capture our women, they put them in a place, keep them safe, keep men away from them. If we capture their women, I don't think we need to explain that. We have ladies present. They understand how it works. Huh? Come be like us. Come be like us. And so finally, I think a good way to kind of wrap it up is with this. Do you want to know what your condition is as someone calling to Islam? What's our condition? Go look in the mirror. Go look in the mirror and ask yourself this question. Could that person in the mirror right there call me by saying, come be like me? Would I want to do it? And if the answer is no, don't go out in the street and call people to anything, because you haven't really fulfilled the first splash of the rock. It hadn't happened yet. But if you can honestly look in that mirror and say, this is somebody who's trying to be on what the Sahabi were on, the companions of Muhammad ﷺ, then go for it. But it's not your talk. Trust me, it's your walk that people are watching. You could make a lot of mistakes in your conversation, and people could forgive that. But if you even limp once, people see you as weak. And if you ever fell down, nobody's going to forget about it. Keep that in mind. So how you behave is everything in Islam, and how you look. And if you said, well, there's two sides to the how I look, because some people are going to ask about that. Do I need to wear the kufi or the imama or the little cap? And do I need to wear the white dress? And do I have to wear sandals and carry a stick and give it the Jesus effect? Because I've had some Christians look at me and say, you look more like Jesus than we do. Especially when I wear that white scarf over my head, you know, you see that, and some of you saw us in Jummah, that white thing over me and all that. How many of you know that this thing that I got on right here is not from the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? How many of you know that nobody in this room is wearing the clothes of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? In fact, there's only one place that I've seen that, that's in the Asian countries, where they wear what's called longi. The longi, that wrap that they wear around, this wrap around, that's all they used to wear. They had two pieces, a lower garment, which they wrapped, and an upper garment, which they wrapped similar to the way you wear it in Hajj. The only difference between their clothes in Hajj and their regular clothes was the color and no sewing. That's it. There's no other difference. So if you see somebody wearing Hajj clothes, that's how the Prophet ﷺ looked and his companions looked. So if you want to dress like that and go out there in the street, go ahead. I don't think so. So please do not pick on each other over these issues. That's not an issue. You're wasting your time. Shaitan just caught you. Which brings us to the next thing. Do not argue with people, Muslims, over Muslim issues. How many do we have in here that are expert alims, scholars, big scholars of Islam? Please raise your hand. You know everything about Islam. Please raise it. No? Anybody? Nobody. Okay, I didn't think so. None of us are going to say that, are we? Nobody's going to say that. Because the more I learn every day, the more I know that I don't know. And the scholars that I sat with and learned from were even more emphatic about that, telling me, no, don't call me an alim. I said, but Sheikh, you're the big master of this whole university. He said, that's just because they don't know yet. By the way, the good ulama are funny too. They have their jokes, yes? Yeah, they do. I love these guys. But humble, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. When I was in Al-Azhar and had the chance to go and meet with some of the big ulama that give the fatwa, these guys, first of all, they're funny. They are. We had a good time with them. Even when I'm trying to speak my pidgin Arabic, I call it pidgin Arabic, like pidgin English. But when I went to visit him, and he is like the top one for all fatwa on the internet, we had to walk up to the flights to get to his little room where he's staying, because they shut the electricity off at 3:30 in the afternoon to save electricity there. Wow. They make the ulama walk upstairs. Yeah, isn't that marvelous? So when they get up there, we get to his little room, he's sharing it with somebody else. And this is somebody that's a dean. This is somebody high up in the university sharing a little room here, and only has 2 beds in it and a little makeshift desk-looking thing, and they're cooking on top of the desk. And he's cooking for us and serving us like a servant. Now, from Pakistan, I saw exactly the same thing. My first year in Islam. First year in Islam, there was a question I wanted to ask, and I found out something. Good Muslims don't answer questions when they don't answer. And I said, well, can't you just tell me? He said, no, let's ask the Imam. The Imam said, you know, I might give you the answer, but I might be wrong. Let's ask somebody else. And they said there is a jama'ah, a walking jama'ah. You know what's walking jama'ah? Okay, there's a walking jama'ah over here, and we want to go see them. We went and saw these people in this walking jama'ah. They were in a little tent behind a gas station. And they had a man sitting in the center, and he was giving a talk, and they let me sit there, and he was speaking Urdu and English and everything. It was really exciting. He knew so much. I mean, it was amazing. And when we left, I said, oh, it was so great. And there was, well, we were there, you know, the people were all trying to give us service, but there was one man, old man, with one eye, and he was doing all this cooking and serving everybody, and they were treating him just like equal to everybody else. It was really beautiful. So later on, when we talked about this big question we had, they said there's one alim that's here in the United States that's with that walking jama'ah. Let us go back and ask him. And I went to Richardson, Texas. They were coming into there, and they were going to be camping there in the masjid that night. So when they came from the area making wudu, cleaning themselves, they came out, and they said, there they come, so go over and ask your question to them. So I went up to him, and I said, do you remember me? Yeah, you're the new American, you know, just came to Islam, everything. I said, I had this question. I started telling him the question. He said, no, don't tell me. Let's tell the alim and let him give the answer. I said, you're the alim. Who's the alim? It was the man with the one eye that was serving everybody. This is the real people of Islam. Nobody's trying to be bigger than somebody else. And so if you understood what I just said, then who are you in the street trying to argue with brothers about issues of fiqh and aqidah, etc., etc.? Where's your proof of your being a big alim all of a sudden? Now I know some of our shabab, our youth, think they know everything there is to know about everything. I remember when I used to know everything. I want to send a message to our youth. Be patient, you'll get over it. Soon enough, you'll find you don't know anything. So, seriously, don't go there. I know that's tempting, but that's all that is shaitan tempting you. You're saying, yes, but Ibn Taymiyyah said, you don't know what he really said, you weren't there. But the book said, good for you, you learned how to read. Just leave it alone. Because all you're going to do is divide up the Muslims. I was sitting with some folks last night, we were talking about a subject, and I looked at it and I said, you know what, it's obvious the person that wrote this made some big mistakes, serious mistakes, but it's his publication. Now, how will you offset what he has? You'll never reach all of the people that he mails that to, will you? You don't even know who they are. The best way you can deal with that is to use what's called hikmah. What's hikmah? Wisdom. Write to the Sheikh something nice that he'll print and include reference to something similar to it. And see how he deals with that. And set the stage so he'll give the right answer. Then the next time you write, just write again and say, remember me, I gave you that question when you answered this way, but now somebody's accusing you of speaking double because you said in another publication, so please help us, Sheikh, we love you so much, tell this person off, give us the right answer. And then what will he do? See, that'd be the way to handle that, wouldn't it? Don't go there. You're not a scholar. Don't try to be one. Don't let shaitan put your head up high, because the one with the highest neck gets it chopped first. That's kind of a good lesson we learned from French history. And remember the guillotine? Yeah. Okay, so having done that, I think I touched on some of the subjects before I even got to them.
Just the sister's role, that other question, just briefly to run up. Sister's role in dawah. I think that's the last sort of question to...
Okay, dealing with the opposite sex. Here's one. How to deal with the opposite sex. I got a lot of funny jokes about this one. We find a brother, he's sitting in a restaurant with a lady, not Muslim lady, just sitting there, and we're going, whoa, what's this? And we take him aside and we say, Abdullah, what's this, man? And you're sitting here with this lady, and he said, I'm giving her dawah. We said, well, we know dawah, it means to invite, but Abdullah, inviting to what? We need to know, man, come on, what's this? And in another case, we're talking about Abdullah, this is just in general men and women. But, you know, I think it was Ali radiallahu anhu who told us that you have one look in Islam. You can look at the lady, and that's it, because you need to know who's in front of you. Is a man or woman or something. So you're allowed to look once. So we see Abdullah, and he's like this, and the lady's going by, and he's like, and you're saying, Abdullah, what are you doing? He said, shut up, I didn't blink yet. So... you have to keep purifying your intentions too much in this deal. Allah told us to look down and guard your gaze and guard yourself and your private parts. So I recommend that if there's a lady wants to know about Islam, hook her up with the rest of the ladies who can tell her. And if there's a man who wants to know about Islam, same thing. Make sense? Yeah. Because we have seen, my wife and I have seen it many times, a brother brings to us a girl. Even one time a brother came, he said, I met this girl in the bar. She wants to know about Islam. She learned about Islam, okay? She became a very good Muslim, okay? Then he said, now I want to get married to her because, you know, and when she found out about Islam, she said, I wouldn't marry this guy. He's going to the bar. But do that. Let the ladies talk to ladies, men talk to men. There are telephones out there. If you have to talk to a woman, and it's happened sometime, I'll talk to them over the phone. And age. Let's talk about age. Some people think, okay, well, it's okay. You know, you're old, so it's okay. You can be with women. I was at a brother's house and fell asleep one night. And I woke up in the morning. He was going out the door. And I'm laying there and going, huh, what? What's happening? He said, I got to go to work early, but, you know, just take your time. I said, brother, your wife's here in the house. He said, yeah, but you're just like my father. I'm going, no, I'm not. You know, I ran out the door with my coat in my hand and my shoes and putting it on the doorstep. I said, no, I'm not either. Not like, I'm sure not like her father, I know that. But they asked my dad, may Allah have mercy on his soul, but they asked my dad, I guess he was in his late 70s, and some of the Muslim brothers asked him, sir, what age does a man attain when he no longer has the interest in a woman in a physical way? He said, go ask somebody older than me. Enough said. Next one.
I think that's basically the rounding up. There's a lot of sisters' role here. I think the last one is some people have a negative view of Islam on how do you deal with them. Issues like Palestine and all, Iraq, negative perceptions. How do you put these negative perceptions?
This is a real good question when you ask me, well, you know, we got a problem with Islam because we find out everywhere there's terrorism, it's Islam. Everywhere we find people kidnapping, it's Islam. Cutting off heads, that's Islam. What's happening in Palestine, that's Islam. Kashmir, blah, blah, blah. It's always coming back Islam, Islam, Islam. It's up to us as Muslims to present the correct picture. The correct picture is what I told you about Islam. Islam is an action, it's a verb, it's something you do. It describes your relationship with the Almighty Allah. The only way they can pull out of this that Islam has anything to do with it is to be able to pull something from Quran that would indicate that it's okay for us to do suicide bombing, blowing up people, innocent people, etc. But in fact, that isn't possible. If you understand the Quran and you understand the meanings of the words, you find that that's totally impossible and is totally unacceptable. So what the real problem is not about Islam. The problem is with some Muslims. So always make this distinction before you go any further. Islam is one thing, and what some Muslims do is totally something else. Muslims do not represent Islam. Islam represents the proper relationship with Almighty God. There are some good Christians who are better Muslims than Muslims. And there are some good Jews who are better Muslims than Muslims, because they already believe in Allah and they're trying their best to do what they know to do according to what they have. And it's up to Allah to judge what they believed, why they believed it, and what they did about what they believe. It's not my job to put people in hellfire. In fact, my job is to try to save myself and my family from a fire whose fuel is men and stones. That's what we started with, and that's a good place to end. We can wrap it up with that. It's really not that hard. Now, I want to give you some references. Time for the bibliography. Let's look for the references for what we said. There are a number of verses in the Quran dealing with the subject of invitation, da'wah. And by the way, it's not da'wah, it's da'wah. It has an ayn, it's like a in the middle of it. Like, go like this, go ah, ah. We have it in Texas. It's a Texas word. Ah. You didn't hear about it? Yeah. Yeah, when a little boy's mother tells him to do something, he said, I ain't gonna do it. It's called ayn. You got ayn. And the mother tells him, that when you put a dot over it, she said, you're gonna do it. So we have ayn and ghayn. Alhamdulillah. And then out in California, we found, it used to be that Arabic was known as the language of blood, because they're the only language that have it, until California got those valley girls, you know, the ones that had the ponytail on the side. For sure, you know, those girls. Well, yeah, because they say bull. You haven't heard them say that? Bull. Well, that's it, bull. That's where you get that letter from. Anyway, the references that I want to give you. Number one is the Quran. Best thing you can do is to sit with the scholars of tafsir and learn the meanings, especially regarding the da'wah. In the meantime, if you want to stick with English till you get there, go to my website, islamtomorrow.com/DAWAH. Islam Tomorrow. Not Islam Always, that's my other website, but islamtomorrow.com/DAWAH. And you find a whole section on doing dawah events, what makes it work, what you shouldn't do. Then there's some other issues in dawah at the bottom of the page. You can click on those and it'll take you to the references from scholars in the Quran, etc., etc., etc. You can keep playing with that all day long. You can make a whole day project out of just that one. Alcohol abuse, smoking, all of these issues that I've just talked about, I have seen work. I know one brother in Ohio that's been advocating stopping smoking since the 1970s. He's all about that. Everybody in the community knows that Muslim guy who doesn't want anybody to smoke. And because of him and others he's worked with, they've been able to get laws passed about smoking. So you can be committed to a lot of things that can turn into dawah along the way. It can be involved, be involved. And for sure, if you ever hear yourself say, I'm bored, I have nothing to do, something's wrong. Seriously, seriously wrong. You need to get in gear and get out here. That's what you need to do. Now, some of the other references. You want to know about the Bible. I know a lot of people think the place to go is to the Bible and really tear those Christians up. But what might happen is you might convince them the Bible is wrong, and they become a disbeliever and don't believe in anything at all. Then how will you explain to Allah on the Day of Judgment you convinced somebody to become a kafir? Won't you be proud of yourself? Or Or you convince them to hate Muslims so bad that they'll do anything with no conscience against the Muslims. You could do that. And then 1 out of 1,000,000 might say, oh, well, yeah, that is wrong. What do you have? Okay, that's Islam, and they might become a Muslim. But they're going to be very few and far between. On the other hand, if you were to go to our website and read islamtomorrow.com/Bible, I'll give you a lot of information just like what you're looking for, and then tell you don't use it that way. It's there, but don't use it that way. Read the one I've got. It's called Son of Who, because that one has helped several pastors get to Islam. Several religious leaders, this year, as a matter of fact, they're reading the Son of Who. That's it. You go to islamtomorrow.com/Bible. Then there's another one, Bible, A Closer Look. Excerpts from another book called Who Wrote the Bible. I recommend you go there and read these things and print them out. And ask people. Don't tell people. Ask them, could you help me look at some of these things? I don't know. I want you to tell me, is this right or wrong? Because if they say, no, it's this, it's that, say, okay. Because now you get another shot later. Right? Plus, they're going to go back and think about what they said. Right or wrong? Then the CDs. We've got a whole lot of CDs. You can go to hearislam.com, download all the audios you want, or you can go to Islam Yesterday and then click the audio link and get those. You can also go to islamtomorrow.com/audio and get all those. And we're talking about hundreds. Pick what you want for whatever topic, but when you find what you consider to be the best one, and I'm telling you already, What is Islam is probably the best one. Common Sense of Islam, Does Islam Equal Terrorism? What is Islam? The Third Loaf, I like that one a lot. And we brought those with us. They are here in the building right now. You don't have to go do anything. Just like reach your hand out, pick one up, and take it. Copy those, but don't make a label. I told you in the beginning, I'm ending with the same thing. KISS. Keep it super simple. Get a great big black magic marker with a wide tip and put a huge question mark. Nothing more. Stick it in an envelope, one of those that has a little window, they can see that question mark. And when you meet somebody, say, I got a question. Can you help me? And give it to them. You said, I've got a question, there's a question mark. Would you mind listening to this thing and then give me your comments? This guy came all the way over here from the United States, from Texas or something or another. I don't know. He's saying stuff here. I don't know. What do you think? Let me know. Listen to it and get back to me. Well, when he comes back to you, he's going to want two things. He's going to say, man, where can I get more? In which case, good to go. Keep working. Or he's going to say, oh, man, I didn't like that. In which case you go, yeah, me neither. Let's look at another one. Here's another one over here. Just keep going. Don't commit yourself to something that you can't back out of. Just say, what if? How about? Maybe. I don't know. What do you think? Did the Prophet ﷺ ask questions or give orders all the time? He only gave orders to the people closest to him. Is that true? And even then, he didn't push them around. He asked a lot of times. And he never blamed anybody. And now this is talking about working with each other in the dawah. This is like the closing comment here. You're going to be working with people. That's what dawah is about. You're going to be working with a lot of Muslims. And Muslims are going to be your biggest hang-up. The most problem you're going to have is with the people sitting right here in the room. But the most support are going to be the people sitting here in the room. These are your best friends and your worst enemies at the same time. Because the Muslims are the biggest enemy to the dawah. And that's just how we just... But it's because Shaitan is helping us mess up. He is really doing his best to mess us up because he knows we're his enemy. We're the only ones who are out here calling to the right way. And he's calling to the wrong way. So obviously we're in competition with him and he'd like to put us out of business. Don't let him do that. And one of the best ways is to follow what the Prophet ﷺ did. Now, Anas ibn Malik told us that in all the years he was serving the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ never blamed him one time for anything. I was wondering, I think it was like 10 years. He never blamed him for anything. Can you go 10 years? No, let's make it easier. Can you go 10 months? No, let's make it 10 weeks. No, 10 days. How about 10 minutes without blaming somebody for something? So let us use that example and close out with that. Just ask Allah to make us of the people that will carry the message in a simple way to the people, keeping ourselves in focus as the number one needing this thing, and along the way keep it super simple and don't blame others for what goes wrong. Everything's from Allah. This is our test, and it's not you who guides. It's Allah who guides, not us. Don't get frustrated. Just be patient. Whether they accept Islam or do not accept Islam is up to Allah, not up to you. If they do accept Islam, don't start counting them out like, aha, I gave shahada to 5 people today. No, Allah gave shahada to them. You just were a witness to that. That's how it works. So we'll ask Allah to guide them, guide us, and keep us on the Sirat al-Mustaqim. You've been watching IPCI right here in South Africa. And this is yours truly, Yusuf Estes, telling you, I love you all for Allah. Hope Allah guide us to do the best job. Ameen.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا مولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وأدخلنا الجنة الفردوس مع الأبرار يا عزيز يا غفار يا رب العالمين. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا شر ما قضيت فإنك تقضي ولا يقضى عليك وإنه لا يذل من واليت ولا يعز من عاديت تباركت ربنا وتعاليت فلك الحمد ونتوب إليك نستغفرك ونتوب إليك وصلى الله على النبي الكريم. اللهم اغفر لنا وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات وألف بين قلوبهم وألف بين قلوبهم وألف بين قلوبهم وأصلح ذات بينهم وانصرهم على عدوك وعدوهم. اللهم لعن الكفرة الذين يصدون عن سبيلك ويكذبون رسلك ويقاتلون أولياءك. اللهم خالف بين كلمتهم وزلزل أقدامهم وأنزل بهم بأسك الذي لا ترده عن القوم المجرمين. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين. اللهم انصر المسلمين الذين يصيبوا بالزلزال في باكستان وفي كشمير وفي أفغانستان وفي جوار ليك تنغانيكا. اللهم انصر المجاهدين في شيشان وفي كشمير وفي فلسطين وفي أفغانستان وفي العراق وفي غوانتنامو باي. اللهم انصر المجاهدين أينما يجاهدوا في سبيلك. اللهم طهر مسجد الأقصى من اليهود الغاصبين. اللهم دمر أعداء الإسلام والمسلمين. اللهم إنا نسألك من كل خير ما سألك من نبيك وحبيبك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ونعوذ بك من كل شر ما استاذك من نبيك وحبيبك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وأنت المستعان وعليك البلاغ ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. اللهم ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا الله إنك أنت التواب التواب الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وأصحابه وبارك وسلم. دعواهم فيها سبحانك اللهم وتحياتهم فيها سلام وآخر دعواهم الحمد لله رب العالمين.
الحميد المجيد الرشيد الشهيد اللطيف